Welcome to your Houston Rewind for November 14th through the 18th. I'm KHOU 11 digital anchor Brandy Smith. We know catching up on the news can be a little overwhelming, especially in a city like Houston where it never seems to stop. So every weekend, we take this opportunity to fill you in on some of the stories you may have missed. Let's rewind. Monday, we learned the identities of all 6 people who died in a midair crash at a Dallas air show. One of those victims was from Montgomery County. Zach Tawartari spoke to an aviation enthusiast who shared the victims' experiences, knowledge, and commitment to aviation history inspired those around them.
It's always neat to be able to see it up close and see that part of history.
World War II aviation enthusiast Arlie Hertzler remembers getting to see this B-17 Flying Fortress up close and personal.
The Texas Raiders was coming to Savannah, Georgia. I'm in Charleston, South Carolina. So I grabbed a couple of friends and took them down there to see the plane.
Little did he know he'd have the opportunity to speak with Dan Reagan, seen here earlier this year, a veteran who he says actually served on that plane.
And we flew between the carriers and the bad guys.
He just opened up. He's a very, very humble, very, very sweet man.
Reagan was one of 6 victims who lost their lives in a deadly vintage plane crash at a Dallas air show over the weekend.
All of them were wonderful and valuable people, but it was hard to see that he was one of the people that was lost.
At the site of the crash in Dallas, friends like David Arbor stopped by to remember fellow pilot Len Root.
He is just the kindest gentleman that you could come across to be a good friend with.
As they're remembered, Arlie says the short time he spent with Reagan is something he'll remember forever.
See that light in his eyes, sharing something that he lived through. We only got like 40 minutes with him, but it's that different connection that he was able to give of a person, it's not just a machine.
Governor Abbott called for an investigation into Harris County's handling of the November 8th election on Monday. Voters complained about delayed openings due to missing keys, lack of paper, among other issues. Shortly after the governor's announcement, the Harris County Republican Party announced it's filing a lawsuit, saying Republicans believe some of the problems may have been intentional.
And the party is here to say to Clifford Tatum, shame on you. You knew better. You know what turnout was like in earlier elections. It was not difficult to be able to send a sufficient number of ballots to the polls, and yet you didn't.
The Harris County Democratic Party responded to the governor, calling his statement, quote, political theater, especially after the governor sent a team to oversee the elections in Harris County. Democrats also expressed concerns that the governor and other state leaders are trying to criminalize election workers.
Our election workers who are volunteers from both parties have done a great job in trying to do the best they can under these laws that he has signed in SB 1. And for them to do another investigation, just trying to simply now criminalize our election workers is a joke and it's unfair to the democratic process.
In a statement, Clifford Tatum told KHOU 11 the Elections Administration is reviewing the issues and claims made about Election Day and will include its findings in a report to the Elections Commission and Commissioners Court. Now, this story took another turn later in the week. We'll get to that in a few minutes. The city of Pearland faces a major budget problem after a miscalculation of property appraisals led it to pass a higher budget than it should have. Somehow, calculations on property appraisals were inflated by more than $1 billion. On Monday, Janelle Bluda reached out to city leaders to find out what this means for homeowners.
Basically, because the city thought they were getting more money than they actually are, they passed a higher budget. But now with the true value of those property taxes, they'll likely have to make some cuts. When the city of Pearland sets a budget each year, they look at how much money they'll be getting from property taxes.
City property taxes make up about 1/3 of our general fund each year.
To do that, they have to look at the appraised value of the property they'll be taxing to project how much money they will be receiving. But somehow this year, when projecting the budget for 2023, the city says the appraisal numbers they received from Harris County were inaccurately calculated by $1.3 billion, making the city believe they would receive more money than they actually would. A big reason on why they narrowly approved a higher budget.
We certainly wouldn't have had this budget
there is less property out there for us to apply our tax rate to, less property value.
Now, with the correct appraisal numbers, they realize their budget will be $10.3 million short. So they'll have to figure out what to do.
But in this particular budget year, where it may have an effect is we may have to do something about some of the services that we offer. We may have to cut some of those services in order to, survive this storm.
Councilmember Alex Kamkar calls it a failure on multiple levels.
We can go blame Harris County, Brazoria County. We can blame all these people. At the end of the day, it's our names on the budget. It's the city of Pearland. And we had a gigantic failure here. And now we've got to do $10 million in debt restructuring, budget cutting to go get right.
The Harris County Appraisal District responded in a statement saying the information HCAD provided was correct. HCAD provides value information to all over 600 the taxing jurisdictions in the county. However, the truth in taxation calculation the jurisdictions must do is very complex. The City Council is meeting next Monday, where they'll begin discussions on what to do next.
If you've always thought Houston was one of the best cities on the planet, you've got a little backup. A new report says Houston is one of the top 100 cities in the world. Rika Mudaraj looked at what went into the ranking.
Houston landed at number 42 on the 2023 World's Best Cities report. It's one of only 25 U.S. cities to earn a spot and the highest ranking Texas city on the list. Holly Clapham with Houston First says rankings like this are a source of pride for businesses and the people who live here.
We are obviously Space City. We are the energy capital. We are home of the 2022 World Championship Astros. We can't get enough of that. It's medical, it's engineering. It's just such a pioneering destination.
The rankings also noted our city draws more Californians and New Yorkers than any other city in the Lone Star State. And with the influx of immigration, the people coming here are more educated and more international than before the pandemic. The annual rankings conducted by Resonance, a leading advisor in tourism, real estate, and economic development, looked at 6 key metrics. Place, Houston's natural and built environment, along with our weather and neighborhoods. Product, the infrastructure and attractions that bring folks to H-Town. Programming, the arts and entertainment scene. People, the city's diversity.
1 in 4 Houstonians is born in another country. You can't not have a sophisticated cosmopolitan city that doesn't have great food and wonderful art and great architecture. When you have the influence of so many different cultures, the beauty is everywhere.
The rankings also considered prosperity, the city's employment rates, and the companies that call Houston home, and promotion, how well we and our many visitors advertise just how great we are. So it's not a surprise Houston is also among the top 5 Googled cities over the past year, and Clapham believes H-Town is only going up from here.
I'm excited for next year when we hit top 20.
A trip to the dentist turned Mayor Sylvester Turner's life upside down. At 68, he says he'd always been healthy. He sat down with Len Cannon for an exclusive interview on Tuesday to talk about going public with his cancer diagnosis and leaning on his faith to endure some uncomfortable treatment.
The very moment you learn you had cancer, your thought at that moment.
Well, that was that threw me for a flip.
Everything changed for the mayor when he says he went to the dentist in June for a nagging toothache. The dentist noticed a lump on his jaw and sent him to a specialist who said,
"Mayor, I'm going to send you for a biopsy." I said, "A biopsy for what?" I said, I got a toothache.
It was much more. The biopsy revealed he had osteosarcoma, a form of bone cancer. 1 week after his diagnosis, he had a 9-hour surgery at MD Anderson, where doctors took bone from his jaw and replaced it with bone from his leg, followed by 8 days in the hospital.
I never was in a lot of pain. They would come and ask me on a scale of 1 to 10, where's your pain level? My pain level never exceeded 2.
Really?
On August 1st, he began 6 weeks of radiation and continued going to city council meetings.
From a mental and emotional point of view, it was good for me.
Good for him, because he couldn't see himself sitting at home and everybody asking how he was doing. In fact, outside of his family, few people knew about his treatment.
The only person on my staff that knew was the chief of staff.
Other council members?
No.
So you were showing up after radiation and nobody knows?
No. They knew what I said to them is that I had major oral surgery. I cannot even imagine going through this journey without my faith. And you didn't tell anybody? I told the right person who was in charge. I prayed. God knew my journey.
There was one problem.
The radiation was a bit challenging because I'm claustrophobic.
This is the mask he had to wear for radiation, 5 days a week for 6 weeks.
You can't talk because it's so tight. But I was, Get
it off me.
And they took it off.
What helped? He asked the technicians to play different music in the room.
You got any gospel around here? True story. I said, can you find a gospel station?
They found a station.
And I said to them, turn it up. Turn it up loud enough for me to hear it.
The mayor told me he had no intention of sharing his diagnosis at his State of the City address earlier this month. But he had an epiphany.
That sometimes you go through stuff, not just for you. That sometimes you go through stuff to benefit somebody else. So how dare you just hold on to your story?
Mayor Turner also told Len he received a letter from President Joe Biden. The president lost his son to cancer and wrote to the mayor offering support through the fight. Used car buyers beware. Some people are trying to sell cars flooded during Hurricane Ian. They're being shipped across the country, with sellers taking advantage of unsuspecting shoppers. And Tuesday, Tiffany Craig revealed why Houstonians need to be extra careful.
We are the #1 city in the country with flooded cars coming back onto the market. So we're going to show you how to protect yourself.
With help from Bruce Jones of CarMax.
Cars get brought into Houston to meet customer demand. And within that, sometimes there are flood cars that are amongst that.
Bruce says pop the hood and start inspecting.
There's a lot in here.
Yep.
Where could a water line potentially be?
Right, so you can look towards the back of the car. We call this the firewall.
If there's a water line, the car flooded. Check for that line in the wheel well too. And then get your sniffer ready for the inside.
I think everybody kind of knows what that just stale mildew smells like. Something you definitely want to check for.
Make sure the seats aren't damp. Peep those seat tracks for rust and pull up the trim by the doors.
And we're checking for silt, dirt, dampness, water, anything inside of here.
This is a flood damaged vehicle. CarMax isn't selling it, but Bruce uses it for show and tell. And there's a lot to see in the trunk.
Doesn't smell funky, but it looks a little nasty.
There's plenty of debris and dried up paper.
That's a really, really good sign there that you've had some standing water in the back of this vehicle.
And it's one you don't want. The price might be right, it might drive okay now, but safety and mechanical issues are down the road.
And one more thing, don't forget to take that car to a mechanic because they can likely find some things that you can't.
Houston ISD is getting in the holiday spirit with a holiday greeting card competition. The district narrowed 142 submissions down to 14 finalists. And Tuesday, KHOU 11 photojournalist Eric Durelius showed us the winner.
Art is real, and art is something that our students need in terms of their creativity and their development.
When this contest began about 31 years ago, students submitted entries on paper. Now we're accepting digital submissions, and we've received more digital art submissions than we've ever received before, and that's exciting as well. I want to see as many kids climbing this ladder around the arts, expressing themselves.
The inspiration for my piece is a particular world inside of an ornament. And in my personal experience, you can spend some nice quality time decorating a tree with family.
Carolyn Rogers, are you here?
Something that inspired this piece was to create a fun, snow-filled kind of environment that we don't often experience in Texas.
And Carolyn's piece is entitled Happy Holidays as well.
I'm still kind of on that high of oh my God, I won.
We're here to support our students and community, and our greeting card should be a reflection of who we are. And so I'm extremely pleased to know that reflection over the holidays is about our students and their work.
I honestly hope they just look at it and remember this fun times of their childhood, playing in the snow wherever they lived. And I know that I always send handmade cards to my close friends, so when they see this, I hope they're really proud.
Some Texas hospitals are overwhelmed with cases of RSV. The state reported Wednesday fewer than 70 pediatric ICU beds were available statewide. Lauren Tallarico shared why the virus can be especially dangerous for young kids.
The past 11 days have been hell.
Mommy loves you. Yeah.
For Emily Vadilla.
It was really scary. It was really, really scary.
That's how long she's been at Texas Children's Hospital with her 2-month-old son, Jeremy. The baby's intubated as he fights RSV. Emily rushed him here a day after he was diagnosed as he struggled to breathe. ER doctors at Texas Children's acted immediately.
They had me rush to the back with my son and were calling codes, so that was horrible.
RSV is a common respiratory virus impacting hospitals nationwide right now. For most, it causes mild cold symptoms. But for young children, especially 2 and younger, it can restrict airways and lung function.
For these people, this infection can be very severe.
Many states are reporting few or no available pediatric ICU beds because of this unusually early surge. In Texas, there are 67 statewide.
Would you call this a crisis?
I think nationally, this is a crisis. Locally, the Murray Herman and any other hospital system in the city is able to cope with the volume.
But Dr. Louise Ostrowski with UT Health and Memorial Hermann says cases are surging and ER wait times are long.
But we lost our culture of staying home when you're sick.
Symptoms include wheezing, fever, a croupy cough, and trouble breathing. Ostrowski says children with symptoms should be tested so supportive treatments like steroids can begin if necessary. Right now, little Jeremy is doing better. Doctors will try to take him off the ventilator tomorrow.
Gotta get this tube out so I can hold you.
As for any long-term impacts, Mom says they'll just have to wait and see. I'm Lauren Tellerico, KHOU 11 News.
If you've ever donated a toy and wondered if it really makes a difference, let me assure you, it does. Wednesday, Brittany Ford met a couple who are proof of the joy of Salvation Army's Angel Tree program.
Over 700 families that are already registered.
Dante and Tiffany Salgado are co-officers at the Pasadena Salvation Army. A love story and call to service.
Both my wife and I are products of Salvation Army programs.
Orchestrated by a need.
My mom would register us every year so that we could have something to unwrap for Christmas.
Both Dante and Tiffany received gifts as children through the Salvation Army's Angel Tree program.
With just toys for my little brother and sister and a gift for my older siblings. And so it was just a beautiful childhood memory that I still have.
Strangers with similar backgrounds, the two would meet at a Salvation Army camp as teenagers, reconnecting later in life as seminary students.
And we have been married now 7 years and been officers for 7 years as well.
Here we have Barbies that are perfect for 5 to 6 year olds.
Ordained ministers at the Salvation Army Pasadena location, ensuring that toys fill this room each holiday season for the Angel Tree program.
So it really is a joy because I understand the shoes of the kids that we're trying to adopt and really register as an angel.
Another top one up there.
Yes.
Barbie.
Is a moment of full circle.
She was really great.
Made possible by harmonious givers.
It's essential that the community kind of supports us in this because it's a personal matter to me to make sure that these kids have something.
Brittany Ford, KHOU 11 News.
If their story got you motivated to give, here's how you do it. You just scan the QR code on your screen for a list of donation sites or a link to donate online. We appreciate our sponsors and you at home for making the season a little bit brighter for those in need. November is National Adoption Month, and 19 Houston children who were in foster care now have a family they can call their own. Many of these kids landed in CPS care after being abused. Anayeli Ruiz spoke with a family who hopes to inspire others to become forever families.
The German family tell me 7-year-old Isabella suffered severe abuse by her biological family. They say she lived in a house of horror to the point where she nearly died. But now they're happy to offer her a loving home she deserves.
I'm so excited for that.
Meet 7-year-old Isabella.
I'm Bella the Brave.
Brave she is. She endured some horrible abuse with her biological family. She was in the hospital for 2 months, even had to learn to walk again.
She actually lost her vision through some hard things that happened in her old family.
The foster system placed her with the German family.
We're trying a long time for biological children, but it didn't happen that way. But we were waiting for her.
And it was love at first sight for them.
From the time we met her, we knew that we clicked and we knew that we wanted her forever.
And now after 2 years, the much anticipated moment the family had been waiting for.
To adopt our baby, Bella.
Bella couldn't sleep.
I was excited because my mom and daddy said that I was going to get adopted.
And on Wednesday morning, a Harris County judge allowed the Germans to legally become mom and dad. Congratulations. Now this resilient, brave little girl has a new loving family she can call her own.
Thank you, Jesus.
In total, 19 kids were adopted today here in Harris County. There are about 330 kids still in the system waiting to be adopted. For more information, you can head to our website at KHOU.com. Anayeli Ruiz, KHOU 11 News.
Thursday, dozens of officers took part in a hyper-realistic training exercise at a Houston area church. The goal, to be ready for the next real-life school threat. Just a warning, the simulated gunfire and sounds you're about to see seem very real. But again, this was just a training exercise, and Jason Miles was there.
Multiple calls received of shots fired.
Although not for real, this training exercise was meant to be realistic by simulating a potential active shooter situation. From eliminating the threat to dealing with the dead and wounded left behind.
Applying pressure, applying pressure.
In this scenario, multiple shooters targeted a church. First responders worked to save lives inside before SWAT entered from outside to help clear the building. All in a coordinated effort that could last for hours in an actual shooting, especially involving multiple suspects.
Everybody is showing up to stop the threat and to save lives. We have to stop the killing immediately.
FBI Houston led this training in conjunction with Memorial Village's police, although agencies from around the area responded as they would in an actual large-scale emergency.
Most events like this that we practice are 15 people or so involved. I'll tell you there's over 100 involved in this, and that's very, very unique.
Even though this exercise was planned after the Uvalde massacre, it wasn't a direct result of it.
But response and communication, which lapsed in Uvalde, were among the focuses of this simulation.
Would you say lessons were learned from that event? On every event, there's always something to learn.
Reporting from Memorial Villages, Jason Miles, KHOU 11 News.
Harris County Judge Lena Hidalgo fired back after District Attorney Kim Ogg's decision to call in the Texas Rangers to look into Harris County elections. This comes after growing calls from Republicans to look into the alleged irregularities. Gerald Harris explained the high-profile back and forth that played out Thursday.
Judge Hidalgo says she still has confidence in Election Administrator Clifford Tatum, and there was not any willful attempt to undermine the election. Ogg is looking into possible election violations stemming from delayed opening, staff training issues, and running out of ballot paper, which upset some voters on Election Day. This comes as Republicans continue to press for investigations into Harris County over what they call election irregularities. Without naming KHOU, Hidalgo called for election officials to reject pandering to conspiracy theories and attempts to feed into election denials.
There is absolutely no evidence to support these charges of systemic and willful manipulation of the election results this year, any more than there is evidence of systemic and willful manipulation of the 2020 results.
KHOU has requested the Texas Rangers to assist with the investigation. During her media availability today, Judge Hidalgo intended to highlight her priorities of addressing mental health care, crime, early childhood education, flood control, and energy transition. Hidalgo defeated Republican challenger Alexandra Miller in last week's election. In Houston, Gerald Harris, KHOU 11 News.
An emotional moment played out in a Harris County courtroom on Thursday when a man sentenced to decades in prison walked free. A judge dismissed Frederick Jeffrey's 2018 drug conviction because prosecutors say it was based solely on former officer Gerald Goins' testimony. Adam Bennett reported prosecutors determined Jeffrey is actually innocent of the crime.
Frederick Jeffrey walked into this downtown Houston courtroom this morning with his case in legal limbo. Minutes later, he left with his case dismissed after a motion filed by the district attorney.
I am deeply sorry for what occurred to you. It never should have happened.
And granted by Judge Danilo Locayo.
I'm glad we were able to fix a wrong. If I can shake your hand, sir. Yes, sir. I'm so sorry this happened. If you ever need anything, give us a call, okay? Yes, sir. Be safe.
I thank God and my mom being in my corner. It just feel good to be finally free.
Jeffrey told me his faith and his mom got him through the nearly 6 years he spent behind bars since his arrest in 2016. Prosecutors say former Houston police officer Gerald Goins falsified information in a search warrant that led officers inside the home where Jeffrey was arrested.
And we also determined that Officer Goins lied about a statement Mr. Jeffrey made about ownership of a cell phone that would have linked Mr. Jeffrey to the drugs in the house.
The DA's office has determined there are 162 convictions within an 11-year period based on Gerald Goins' word alone.
We are working with the Public Defender's Office to try to get as many of those appeals in as we can, and the District Attorney's Office has sent letters to all the individuals who we believe were affected by this.
It's the same notification Frederick Jeffrey got that eventually opened the door to freedom.
Just live life. Live life. Everybody else live life. What else is going to do? Live life. That's it.
Looking ahead, Jeffrey's lawyer says they'll discuss whether to apply for compensation from the state or sue HPD. For now, Jeffrey says he'll enjoy spending Thanksgiving with his girlfriend and his family, including his 21-year-old daughter, for the first time in years. As for the Goins case, we have covered it extensively since the Harding Street raid in January 2019. Check out this playlist on our KHOU 11 YouTube channel to dig into the full story there. Someone stole more than $1,000 out of a Houston man's car, and the victim believes he was the victim of jugging. Marcelino Benito shared his warning to others.
We all know Pastor Garcia for the weather video he contributes to KHOU 11, but tonight he's on the news because he became a victim, followed and robbed minutes after leaving a bank, and what the crooks took will have an impact on the community he works to serve.
This is definitely a reality check, and it's a wake-up call.
Pastor Jaime Garcia wants to warn Houstonians after a trip to the bank quickly turned dangerous.
We must be aware because people are watching and it's pretty scary.
He stopped by Chase Bank off the North Loop in Shepherd yesterday to cash 2 last-minute donations, totaling $1,300.
Heartbreaking part that this was not my money. This was a donation that was gifted so that we can help the community during this Thanksgiving.
He walked out and decided to make a quick pit stop at Home Depot, less than a quarter mile away.
The money was in my pocket. It was not even displayed. But someone was watching. They saw me open the console and put it there.
He parked towards the front, was inside for less than 10 minutes. Cameras don't capture as the crook smashes the window, but you see the thief jump into a black Jaguar before speeding off.
When I got to my truck, I was in disbelief. And the reason I was in disbelief is the audacity of these guys to do this right in front of Home Depot with all these cameras. I just couldn't believe it.
Pastor Garcia says it's clear the crooks knew exactly where to look and what they would find. They went straight for the money and left behind his brother's backpack in the back seat.
And we're concerned that this might be someone that is around the bank tipping people off as customers come out. They're watching, and I'm telling you, I really believe that these guys will get caught eventually.
If you recognize the men or the car in that video, you're asked to call Houston police. In the meantime, here's some helpful tips to make sure you don't become a victim of this same type of crime. If possible, Houston police encourage you to make the bank the last stop of your errands. Of course, never leave any amount of cash left behind in the car. And be extra alert when leaving a bank. Make sure you're not being followed. And if you believe you are being followed, police ask you to call 911 or drive to the nearest police station. We're on the north side tonight. I'm Marcelino Benito, KHOU 11 News.
At an emotional meeting at T.H. Rogers School on Friday, parents voiced their concerns about HISD's plan to move some students to other schools next year. Brittany Ford explained the decision affects 49 students with profound disabilities.
You don't know what is right for my child. You don't know what is right for these people's students.
Arnita Washington's 16-year-old daughter Jayla is enrolled in the PSI program at T.H. Rogers.
I actually held her back a year in elementary to get her here because of safety, one, and the program that they have.
We weren't even given proper notice. I don't even know all the laws that have been broken.
Julie Beeson's 15-year-old son Bo is also enrolled.
What's being done to our children with the TEA and HISD is just unconscionable. It is so wrong.
The two were among dozens of outraged parents who showed up to a meeting HISD held on the campus Friday after this letter was sent saying students in the program will be moved to different schools.
So this situation that we find ourselves in.
During the meeting, HISD representatives explained the reason behind the decision, saying T.H. Rogers doesn't have what they call a continuum of services to fully meet students' needs. Going on to say the 49 profoundly disabled students will be moved to schools closer to home.
How could he be in a school, a huge high school alone? We have community here. Everything here is already made for us.
Parents arguing the district should be looking to invest in T.H. Rogers so it can meet the state standards.
This program is very, very valuable. It's very valuable not only for the students, but for the parents.
With some looking to take legal action.
This isn't over today. We've only just begun. I will never get tired of fighting for this population of kids.
By tonnage, Houston has the busiest port in the country, and soon it'll be able to bring in even bigger ships. On Friday, Jason Miles took us on an exclusive tour to show the efforts being made to widen and deepen the ship channel.
The busiest waterway in the nation by tonnage is right in our own backyard.
We're 50 million tons bigger than number 2.
Accommodating bigger and bigger ships is part of the reason Port Houston pushed Project 11.
We call it Project 11 because it's the 11th major expansion of the ship channel in its 150-year history.
The multi-year, multi-segment project includes widening parts of the channel to 700 feet and deepening others to 46.5 feet.
You might not realize it, but about half of the ship channel actually runs through Galveston Bay. That's it right there on either side. The depth is only about 8 feet.
Primary objectives include improving draft for larger vessels and giving them more room to maneuver, lessening the need to play what ship pilots call Texas chicken. But first, tons of material must be removed.
I know a lot about dredging.
Project manager Leah Wilson was among those showing us a number of dredgers currently in use, including the largest clamshell dredger in the U.S., which is also hybrid electric to help with emissions.
So they're doing roughly 15,000 cubic yards a day here. Once they're out in the channel, they'll be upwards of like 20 to 22,000 cubic yards a day.
Meanwhile, this giant drill bit looking device on another dredge loosens hard clay and soils underwater.
It's about 10 foot wide, and this one weighs around 17 tons or so.
The muck is then pumped through a tube and dumped either on man-made islands like this, out in the Gulf, or to help with beach restoration, helping to keep a multi-billion-dollar economic engine comfortably afloat for years to come.
No channel, no ships, no port.
Reporting along the Houston Ship Channel, Jason Miles, KHOU 11 News.
Next time we catch up, Thanksgiving will have come and gone, so just a heads up about the HEB Thanksgiving Day Parade. Our own Ron Trevino and Great Day Houston's Deborah Duncan will host it. You can watch it live right here on KHOU 11 starting at 9 a.m. Thanksgiving morning. We're also going to stream it on our KHOU 11 Plus app, which you can download for free on Roku and Fire TV. That is also where you can catch up on all these stories and more you may have missed. Hope that helped you catch up on this past week and you are ready for the next one. Have a happy Thanksgiving.